Thank you for coming. This is the last session of the day. Thank you for staying back. This is developing cross-platform applications using AppStudio part 2, which is the advanced session. So my name is Satya and I run the AppStudio and the Survey 123 teams. We are spanning in 3 countries. We have a team in Redlands, where I am. We also have a team in Melbourne, Australia, about 10 of them. And we also have about 5 people from Beijing, China, who are also working on some aspects of AppStudio. So we're close to about 20 right now, people behind this product. We have multiple initiatives, but mostly whatever we do, we build on top of AppStudio, just to give you some background. Okay. Feel free to ask questions. I'll be happy to answer them. You can ask any type of question, it doesn't matter. I'll try my best, except for licensing stuff, which I don't like to bore you with, but you can ask. And yeah, so how many of you attended the previous session? Or actually, hold on, let me change the question. How many of you did not attend the previous session? Oh wow, okay. Out of the people who did not attend the previous session, how many of you know AppStudio? Oh, wow, so there are some people who are brand new. Okay, we have brand new people in AppStudio. This is, as I said, an advanced session. I can understand that you couldn't make it. So I'll just quickly cover and just give you a sort of a 30-second elevator pitch as to what this product is about, and then we can go a little bit advanced. So AppStudio is a app development product that Esri is offering. It's called AppStudio for ArcGIS, and it is a first-class app development framework and tooling and apps and templates that is targeted towards cross-platform and productivity. Okay, so by cross-platform we mean Android, iOS, iPads, iPhones, Linux, Windows, and Mac. So basically we target the phones and mobile devices, but we also target desktops and laptops and any other form of things that can run this. So what does this mean? It means that AppStudio is your solution for pretty much anything that doesn't run in a web browser. All right, that's the way I actually look at it. So you can write applications that can run on any of these platforms that doesn't run on a web browser. Since there are new people here, let me actually run this slide through. So AppStudio for ArcGIS is a collection of tools and libraries and samples and SDK and stuff like that. So what do we include in AppStudio? We include a full version of ArcGIS runtime API. Okay, how many of you know what is ArcGIS runtime API? Most of you know. If you didn't know, it is basically a way to consume ArcGIS resources, which is developed by the ArcGIS team. So this is a library or an API that is available in many flavors, and we are using one of the flavors and we are bundling it inside the product itself. Since we are Esri and we understand ArcGIS very well, you can expect that AppStudio has got excellent ways to work with portal, your online services, your own services, servers, groups, authentication, sharing, that all the things that you know about. Since I told you that we are just not an API or an SDK, we give you a lot of developer productivity tools. In fact, we recently did a 2-day workshop just on AppStudio. So you can imagine we actually covered a lot of content, which I'm going to condense now to about 45-50 minutes. But just to give you guys a glimpse, but only once you start using AppStudio you will know the developer productivity aspects of it. We'll actually talk a little bit about it. Just to get you guys started, we have some samples and we have excellent templates. We have 3 templates. One is called a map tour. How many of you use story maps here? Story maps. Some of you? If you use story maps, you can create a native application right now using AppStudio. So what we did was we took one of the story maps called map tours, where you can actually tell a story on a set of points with photos and description, and typically you only used to run it on a browser. That's great, but what if you wanted to create a native application out of it and put it in the store or any of those things? You can actually do it now. So you can actually take one of your map tours and point it to one of the templates we have, and we magically create an application for you. It works pretty cool actually. It's got some very advanced functionality built in, and it also works offline, which is great. And we also have a different template called map viewer template, which is basically a map gallery, or if you have web maps or you have a group of web maps and you just want to get them on to your native devices, then you just have to use one of this template called map viewer, point it to your web maps or the group. It will pull everything down and give you a native app that can work with it. It's going to show you a legend, help you with the search. It's going to do pop-up, all that kind of stuff that you expect from your mapping application. The other kind of template we have is something called as Quick Report. Quick Report is a very cool template. It actually works with one of your feature services. It can work with a polygon based service, a point based service, or a line based service. And once you configure that, it will actually figure out pretty much everything about the feature service. It can figure out whether it has attachments. If it has attachments, it will allow you to take photos and upload them. It will also figure out if you have types or subtypes and domains. If yes, then it will give you a nice UI to represent that. It will figure out how many editable fields you have in your feature service and give you a way to enter them. It will even figure out the type of fields you have and give you an appropriate UI control for that. It will try to make you, or it will actually try to prevent you from making mistakes. So it will actually help you fill out the forms correctly. And the best part about it is it works offline. So you can actually collect reports online or offline, save it, edit it, and submit it once you have a connection. Pretty much all of that is free because it's a template and it's easily available. All you have to give it is a feature service. So those 3 templates that I talked about are fully featured templates. That means that we have actually decided on what it should do, and we have actually made it App Store ready. That is, it's just fully finished. You can brand it, you can add your own data and take it to the store. Just as to give you guys a taste of what AppStudio could offer. Okay? And then something unique that AppStudio provides is an application called Player, which was also developed using AppStudio, but that's a great tool for you to install on your devices and quickly test the app that you the code that you just write. It is something similar. If you're coming from the web background, it is something that you're very used to. When you write your web applications and make some code changes, all you have to do is go to the browser and click refresh, isn't it? It's so fast, easy, and you sort of get addicted to that. But when you come to the native platform, actually it doesn't work that way. You have to compile it, you have to take it to a device and install it and run it, and I mean, it is a painful process if you're coming from the web, and it's kind of hard to wait. So AppStudio actually solves this problem by giving you a solution that is more closer to the web way of doing things. That is, it gives you an app called Player that you install on your device, and you write your AppStudio apps, and then once you write them and you make any changes, you can pretty much download them in the Player, just the code, and just run it. There is no compilation step, there is no binary creation, there is no deployment, anything. So it's a great tool for testing, and believe it or not, some people even use it as their own deployment within their own organizations, because they think it's a cool way to distribute apps. To top it all of this, we actually also offer a cloud-based build as a service. How many of you here have actually participated in any native app development? All right, iOS, Android. Okay, have you guys actually tried to build everything and get it ready? Is it fun? No, right? So we identified, and as I told you, AppStudio is all about productivity, and if anything is trying to slow you down, we want to solve that problem. And because of that, we are actually providing you a very valuable build as a service. What does that mean? That means that you can actually concentrate on writing your code, and once you're ready, you can test it in the player. Keep testing it, sending it, getting feedback. Once you're ready to take it to the store or deploy it in your own enterprise, you can use one of the cloud services that we offer and ask us to do all the hard work, and we're going to take a look at that. It's actually a very powerful tool. And then we're also working very hard to provide you a common set of UI and widgets, basically things that we think you will need to write your apps. So basic things like signing in through OAuth, a menu, a base map picker, an auto suggest or auto completing widget to search your features, maybe a way to select your layers, maybe a way to show you different coordinates in different coordinate systems, maybe a component to capture images using the camera with flash, with zoom, maybe a way to automatically resize images before uploading it to your feature services, right? Maybe even a way to help you edit your photos before you do it. Maybe you want to draw something on it. So those are all the kinds of things that we are building behind the scenes for you guys, so that when you actually write your apps, you concentrate on the feature functionality and the composition of your app, rather than doing the same thing by every developer. So we are building these widgets that will help you write these apps much faster. Okay. So the idea behind AppStudio is we want to bring the ease of the web platform and the power of the native platform together. That is the idea. So whatever are the good things of the web, we want to copy that and we want to bring it to the native platform, so that everybody can be productive, including us, because we write a lot of apps using AppStudio too. Is everybody on the same page here? That was just a sort of an introduction to the guys who actually missed the last session. All right, so let's actually take a look at the apps itself, or so what is AppStudio itself? So you will have to download AppStudio, and AppStudio in its current form looks like this. By the way, this is AppStudio Desktop, and AppStudio Desktop itself is available on Windows, Mac or Linux. So what does that mean? It means that you don't have to buy a new computer. You can just use whatever you have to write AppStudio apps. Okay? So AppStudio runs on any of your devices, any of your existing operating systems, and once you do that, once you install AppStudio, you're going to be presented with an interface like this. Obviously, you're not going to have the number of apps I have here, because I've been writing a lot of apps, but you're going to have a couple of them, and you can always create new. So here is an example of creating a new app. You will actually go here and select a type of app. You can select templates, starters, layouts, samples, or even enterprise ones. So once you select an app, it's going to create one, and you can just pretty much double click it, and it's going to run. Here is a template based app that is actually running, and I can actually just execute it natively on my Mac. A lot of you might have not recognized what just happened. What just happened is there is an app on my desktop. I just clicked on it or double clicked on it, and it just ran natively on my Mac. So what am I executing here? This is a native Mac application that I just executed. Okay, I didn't have to think about it. It just runs and works. It uses runtime to show the maps. It uses ArcGIS Online to show the photos, and it uses AppStudio tooling to bring all of these things together. So let's see if any of the map tools are working. Here's an example. It's got a lot of features. It's got a map. It's got the base maps. It's got the photos. It will zoom to the appropriate point. It will give you all the information that was programmed into this application. So how is this all running? If I actually take a look at it, these are all the files behind it that is running that application. If you see here, it's got a bunch of files. It's got the PNGs, it's got some JSON, it's got a QML app, and it's got some assets like a GIF file or a font file and all those things. Very typical things that you would use to write your apps. Okay, so that is how you actually discover your files. So there are many other tools over here which I will slowly go through. I'm assuming that you know a little bit about AppStudio. So one of the tools that we provide is this setting tool. Setting tool has got multiple use cases here. So setting tool allows you to define the metadata for your app, for example the title, description, credits, and this and that, and the thumbnail. That's great. But what it also does is it gives you ability to configure some of the properties that you want, and more importantly, it will get your app ready for deployment. Okay, so when you're writing native apps, you actually need a bunch of resources before you can put it on somebody's device. One of the first resources that you need is an app icon, right? Those are the icons you see on your phone when you download from the App Store. So you need to provide us that. The problem with that is iOS requires, or I should not say iOS, iPhone requires a different size icon, and iPad requires a different size icon. In fact, 4 models of iPads requires 4 different sizes of icons, and Android requires a lot of icons because there's so many different devices. If you ever tried to provide these icons yourself, I mean that itself is very time consuming. And because we are a productivity tooling, we thought of taking it upon ourselves. So all you have to provide is one good looking, one good size icon, and behind the scenes we will chop it and trim it for the appropriate devices that it will get installed on. So you don't have to worry about it. Okay, small things like that will make your life easy. Very similarly, for any app to run, you need something called as a launch image. That's the first image that's going to show before the actual app opens. And both in iOS and Android nowadays, that's become sort of the mandatory thing. So instead of and by the way, for each device you have to give a launch image in each orientation. So it is actually 2 times the number of images you use for app icons. And on top of it, on Android, depending on the density of the device, you will have to give 1 image for each orientation for each density. Okay, it is complicated. So essentially what we do is, behind the scenes we actually automatically generate this launch image for you, or you can even give your own, and we will behind the scenes chop it, trim it, and make sure that we are generating all the assets correctly so that you can actually push it to the appropriate devices. Okay, we support the types of devices, whether you want to run on tablet or phone or both, and in cases of tablet and phone, we can choose between portrait and landscape or both. We also give you ability to ask permissions. Have you ever noticed that when you install an app from the App Store, it will ask you, can this app use photo, can this app use camera, can this app use location, right? These properties are actually different for iOS and Android and a Mac, and sometimes it's not needed for Windows. So trying to target this yourselves will be a challenge. So behind the scenes, what we do is we ask these generic questions to you, and based on your answer we will generate the appropriate permission model that is required for each of these apps to run on the devices. Okay, so that is also a productivity that we are actually giving you. The other productivity that we are giving you is we actually automatically provide a way to invoke your apps. How many of you know that you can actually invoke your app other than using a URL? Does anybody know that? Somebody said you guys did the native apps, right? How do you invoke your native apps? Do you know it? How do you get to a website? How do you get to a website? A URL. See, everybody knows that. How do you get to your app? App icon. That's a good answer. So the only way that you think you can get to an app is by clicking on the app, right? No, that is not the answer. That's not the only way to get to your app. You can actually get to your app magically by calling some magic URL that will invoke your app. Okay? Have you ever noticed that if somebody sends you a tweet, or if somebody sends you a YouTube on your email, if you click that email link, suddenly a YouTube app opens? Have you guys noticed that? How do you think they opened that? Did they actually open the icon? Right. So, just like how you got an email with a link, and when you click the link on your phone, suddenly a YouTube app opens, or a Twitter app opens, or a Facebook app opens, we actually expose that functionality for you, okay? And that is called URL scheme. Are you guys seeing it on the top? So each app has the ability to define its own URL scheme, and instead of using http://www.yahoo.com, which will go to Yahoo, you can actually use your app something.com, and don't use .com, your app something, and then you could put a : on it and invoke your app. So that's a great way to talk between two apps, or invoke one app to the other app, or even get to your native app from the web. Just imagine you have a web URL in your website, and somebody opens that website on your phone, and you actually click on a link and your app opens up, right? It's a very simple thing, but those are the kinds of productivity that we are trying to provide you out of the box. And if at all you want to take your app and create a binary out of it and deploy it in your enterprise or in your app stores, unfortunately, on an iOS device, they are very strict about it. Apple is extremely strict about it. They require something called as certificates. Okay? So you need to pay Apple some money, most probably a $99 fee for a year. You can generate any number of apps. But once you do that, they allow you to download something called as a certificate. So each app needs to get its own certificate, something that we cannot avoid. But once you do that, you don't have to figure out how do you make that work. All you have to do is provide us the certificate, and we will actually make sure that your app is actually compatible and actually deployable on your own devices. If you have never done certificate, believe me, it's one of the major pain points in native app development. If you do something in website, you never care about those things. You just deploy it on your own. It is unfortunate that you have to take this app that you built and you have to ask Apple to allow you to open it up, and that's the way it is. They control what goes into the device, and because of this, you need to buy a certificate from them or buy an account from them, create a certificate, and unlock that app to be installed. It's a common process that everybody has to go through. Similarly, for Android, you can do it in two ways. You can either sign a certificate, sign an app, or not sign an app. If you not sign an app, you can still deploy it on the devices. The only thing is, it will tell that this, it will complain that this is not from a trusted source. Do you want to install? If you say okay, it'll just install it. But if you sign it, then you have the advantage of putting it into the Play Store or deploying it in your own enterprise, and it won't tell you that it's untrusted kind of stuff. Okay. Similarly, since we support Mac and Windows also, you can actually sign and provide us the signing certificates for a Mac. If yes, then we can actually just include it over here, or a Windows sign itself. So these are all the productivity tools that we have in just the settings. Okay. So the next set of productivity we have is how you manage your apps. So basically what AppStudio is doing is AppStudio is allowing you to create your apps. Once you write your app, you can double click it, run it, debug it, and do all that stuff. And you want to see it run on your devices, and you also might want to share it with your colleagues. So how do they do that? To do that, we are actually taking advantage of your ArcGIS organization. So if you log into AppStudio with your ArcGIS organization, we kind of know that you have a lot of storage space there, and you know that you maintain your maps and services there. We sort of get along the ride, and we actually tell that we can actually take your apps and store it into your own organization. So if I actually go ahead and create an app and upload it into this organization over here, what ends up happening is, if you log into your organization, what ends up happening is you end up seeing something called as a native application. This is a new item that gets created for every app that you create and gets stored in your own organization. So basically we are using ArcGIS organization as an app storage and a sort of app deployment platform, which is good, because then if I actually go to this, then the same sharing model that you guys are used to for maps and apps become available to you. So if you want to share this app the way it is to your colleague or to a group or to your organization, you can enable the same. What does that mean is, if somebody has either AppStudio or Player, if they log into that account and if you have shared it with them, they can also see it and they can also run it and they can also give you feedback on that. Okay? Just like how you do things with maps now, you can also do similar things with apps. Are you guys getting it? Do you want me to go into more details? Yeah, okay. I'll keep it about the same. I didn't see so many people nod, so I'm assuming I'm in the borderline. Okay, let me get back to some other toolings. All right. So that is upload, and whenever you upload, the latest code, the folder that I showed you will get zipped up and get stored on your own organization account. Okay, why do you need that? Obviously you need that to share it with others, you want to collaborate, but you also need it if you want to create an executable or a binary. I told you that that AppStudio comes with an amazing capability, which is build as a service. So what is build as a service? Build as a service is a infrastructure that we are hosting, which has Macs, Windows, Linux, Xcode, Android Studio, certificate handling, all the things that you need to worry about without you having to worry about it. We take care of that for you, and we have 30-40 machines like that and lined up in the cloud. So what we do is we manage all that infrastructure for you, and we ask you, so you're using AppStudio, which app do you want us to build? You can choose, you know what, I'm actually done with this app, so I'm going to actually deploy it on Android or iOS and Mac or Linux. It's up to you which platform you want to deploy. And once you do that, you can even subscribe to Verbo's email notification. What's going to happen is it's going to give you some pre-checks. Say we actually pass all the pre-checks, you can actually go ahead and request a build. When you actually request a build, or if you have any permissions, it will even show you that. Let me actually go to my apps over here. Yeah, let me actually do this. Okay, I'm going to analyze this build and ask it to build. So here you go, we have submitted the build request. So what did it do right now? It took my app, or at least it knows which app which I'm asking, and it's going to our build servers, and it is sort of getting in the queue and saying please build the executables for me so that I can take this to the store or deploy it in my own enterprise. Okay? What this also means is if you are using AppStudio on Windows, you can create executables for Mac, you can create executable for iOS or for Android. If you are on a Mac, you can create executables for Windows too. It doesn't matter, right? The device in which you are working on doesn't matter because we have all the infrastructure for all the platforms. Let me put the question in a different way. How many of you know that you need a Mac to develop an iOS app? Everybody knows that. So AppStudio allows you not to have a Mac if you don't want to have a Mac. Okay? We want you to buy a Mac because you want to buy a Mac, not because you want to write an app. Right? So you can still be using your old Windows machine if you want to write iOS apps. It doesn't matter because we do all the heavy lifting for you guys. Alright? It's pretty fast, right? Before I finish talking, the Android build is already completed. Now this Android, I would have gotten an email and you would have clicked the link and you could have installed it. But what happens behind the scenes? That's what you are here for. What exactly happened was, I'm logged into my ArcGIS organization and the build is complete. So what that actually means is, once my build is complete, the build service has taken the completed executables and put it back into the same organizations that I have actually logged in. So it would have created a folder called My Apps, and if you actually see here, do you guys actually see these two? These two are the apps I just built right in front of you. Okay, I submitted it, it was queued up, it got built, and once it is built, it has been put back into the same organization that you own. Now it's up to you what you want to do with it. You have created a binary. I'm assuming either you want to go to the store with it or you want to deploy it within your own organization. It's completely up to you. Okay? So one other thing I actually wanted to show you, since you guys are in the advanced session, we put a lot of good information over here. When we build the binary, we will just give you something .ipa or something .exe. It will not have a lot of information. Okay? But when you actually take a look at this page, it has got a lot of information. It is actually telling you the version of the app that you had used, and we are also giving you information on the certificate that you might have used. This is very important, especially when you go to the app stores. You cannot create a certificate for an app called X and actually take it and submit as an app for Y. They will not accept it. And if you just take a look at the file names, you yourself will not be able to figure it out. So all these kinds of information, believe me, is extremely time saving. Okay? So you didn't have to worry about that. We are taking care of a lot of stuff for you. We not only do that, and if I go to my email, I'm sure you're going to see a lot of email here. Let me just quickly switch. Did you guys actually see this? I got an email from the build system saying that my iOS app and my Android app succeeded. Oh, by the way, it is also telling that there is two ways to go about it. Either you can download your installation file going to your organization, or because we are all about productivity, we have also created a new way to install these onto your own devices without having to go through any hassle, which is we have actually created a utility for over-the-air install. Okay? So what is that over-the-air install? If I actually open this URL on my device right now, either an iOS device or an Android device, because I built one for iOS and one for Android, right? And if I had logged in using the same account that I just used, what you will actually see here is we give you an automatic way to install it onto the device with a single click. Okay? So this is what is called as over-the-air installer. When you go to the app store that is on your phone, what do? You see the name of the app and you click install, it installs, right? Behind the scenes it does hundreds of things. If you don't go to the app store, say you are deploying it in your own enterprise, then they kind of expect you to do all of that stuff all by yourself because you didn't want to use the App Store. That's where we come in, right? We are all about productivity. We said, why should you guys do it? Let us do it. So we did it. Since we did it, it's all available to you guys too. You guys getting it? So we are doing this and providing you as a tool, and because of that, when you go ahead and click install on any one of these things, for an Android device, you can see that I have the GeoHub. For a iOS device, I also have it. Since I am not on the actual device, it will only allow me to download. If you actually run this on your actual device, it will say install, and you can click on install and it will just install it. So we take care of all that certificate and matching and installing all those things for you. We not only do that, we also give you a very clever way of sharing this. Suppose you have generated this installer and you want your friend's device to install it. You could have sent him this OTA link and give him a username and password. But we think that's kind of boring way of sharing it, right? So there must be an easier way, and there is. So what we actually do is we actually create a temporary link that you can send to one of your colleagues or friends who is able to install this, and this link will work for 30 minutes. As long as they install it within the next 30 minutes, all they have to do is just click it and they will just get it installed. Alright? These are all the hidden gems behind the scenes. So a lot of tooling, a lot of productivity has been added to AppStudio. So let's actually get back. So the next set of tools, oh by the way, if you guys don't want to use our cloud infrastructure for any reason, because of privacy concerns or security concerns, we also give you sufficient tooling to do it yourself on your own machine. But as I told you earlier, if you do it on your own machine, you become platform dependent because you don't have all the machines that you need, right? So I'm on a Mac right now. If I want to do a build myself on a Mac, what can I do? I can actually build it for Android, you see, but I will not be able to build it for a Linux or a Windows. That is because I'm on a Mac, right? If you had used our cloud infrastructure, we have all the machines, so you don't have to worry about it. Since you chose not to use a cloud infrastructure, you will get limited to whatever platforms that run on your device. That's a choice that you make, okay? But we don't leave you because you made the choice. We still help you out, but we are limited by what you have, okay? Just keep that in mind. All right, what else? I mean, I can take the next an hour and a half just going through this UI. I think I need to hurry up, so I'll show you. I'll just talk fast. How about that? Okay. So if you click on that folder icon, you're going to see all the things over here that actually make up your app. If you click on this green button over here, you actually open your entire app ready to code, ready to extend in a full-fledged development environment. It comes ready to go with all the tooling and logging and debugging and all that stuff. And if you make any changes, you don't have to go back to AppStudio to click it to run. All the tools have been integrated here. You can take a look at all the shortcuts over here. So all the tooling I just showed you, let me just hold on. All the tooling I just showed you by clicking can also be invoked by shortcuts. So in this case, if I want to run this app over here, I would just go and say shift or shift option R on a Mac or a shift alt R on a Windows, and it will just run. It will not only run, it will also give me any debug, any issues, and this is a great way for you to write and make sure everything is looking good. Running this application here through a shortcut in an IDE has the same effect of running this application if I double click. The only difference is if you double click, it will just run. If you open it in an IDE and then run, you will get all the debug messages and you can actually see what is happening. Those are the only two modes that it runs in. All right, did we stop there? No, actually. So we thought, okay, this is great. Now you are going to take this app and you are going to put it on the phone or on your tablet. What if this app was working perfectly on your Mac or on your Windows, and when you put it on your phone, it doesn't work exactly the same way. Something is wrong. The problem with these devices is pretty much a black box. I mean, you don't have something that can give you information of what's going inside of this, correct? So how do we debug that, or how do we understand where is the problem? A classic example. Previously I was helping someone who was having an issue. They're using an image that is an icon or something. It works great on a Mac, it works great on a Windows, it works great on an Android device. It doesn't work on an iOS device. The same exact code, right? What do we do with these kinds of problems? The code is the same. It's working exactly well on all the other platforms except one platform. What is the problem? How do we find these things out? You know what the problem ended up to be? It's funny that Apple's Mac platform and Android and Windows is not case sensitive to the file path. But on an iOS device, it was case sensitive to a file path. So instead of using a small images folder, they capitalized the I in the images. That's all they did. And because of that, that whole image was inaccessible on an iOS device. I mean, you will literally pull your hair trying to find out these things as to why, right? You might suspect, oh my God, maybe it's a new phone that I have not tested or a new operating system that I'm not aware of. But sometimes these problems are as silly as what I just said. So how do you know all these things? So we have actually added something called as a console or an app console. So what this is this is your remote logging solution. Okay? So the way this works is using your player, you can just scan this QR code, and once you scan this QR code, and if you are on the same network, make sure you're on the same network, then your player will start catching all the console messages and start piping it to this wirelessly. And it can work with multiple devices too. So you can have your Android connected, iOS connected, iPad connected, iPhone connected, it doesn't matter. And it will actually give you the line of code, the name of the app, and pretty much all the things that you have asked it to dump, right? Or console or log or whatever you want. That's a great way to test it on a black box device where you have no control without having to open up Xcode and connect all the wires and all those things, right? It's a very, very good developer productivity tool. Okay. So these are all the things that we are thinking of behind the scenes. Let me actually show you one other thing. It's going to blow your mind. Okay, I actually talked about a lot of stuff. I told you can install player on your app, on your device, and this and that and everything else. Now the next problem is, how many devices you guys have? So user, how many devices do you have access to? A phone, right? Maybe an iPad, correct? Which version of operating system are you running on an iPad? The latest one, most probably, correct? Now this is what happens. Here is a scenario. I have released the app, I've given it to my enterprise customers, everything is great. It works great on my device, my boss's device, whoever I have sent it to, my wife's device, every device I know it works great. But one customer comes back to me and says, it doesn't work on my device. The code is the same, the app is the same, it's working, right? Why is it not working on his device? That is because he never updated his operating system to the latest operating system, and he just chose to be on the older one. All the devices that we have is newer than that, so we didn't happen to test it. So here's my point. My point is, it is literally impossible to have all versions of all devices of all sizes and shapes, correct? So now, though we give you player, which is the best tool to test and debug your apps, and it runs on the immediate devices that you have, we still cannot guarantee that these apps will not break in some other old stuff that you might not have tested. In fact, just in iOS, you have iOS 8, 8.1, 9, 9.1, 10, 10, 10.1, 10.2, 10.3. By the way, 10.3 is not yet released, but Apple has released it for the developers. Okay? And Android, you don't even have to get me started on Android. There is at least 6,000 different types of devices, and there is at least 10 different operating systems on that, and there are certain devices which will never get updated. So you tell me, just because you write an app, should you go and buy an old device from eBay so that you can test it? Is that what you guys want to do? See the problem and the challenge here? So though we are trying to help you with all the best tooling available, it is still not sufficient. So how can we solve this problem? To solve this problem, thankfully, Apple and Google actually give you some useful tool which is called emulator or a simulator, correct? It's a little bit geeky stuff, but if you actually set it up correctly, we have documented that, it should not be too hard, and it's free, thankfully. You can download a simulator or an emulator for free or both. Once you do that, AppStudio does the rest of the magic for you, okay? Here is my Mac. On my Mac, I can actually run both Android and iOS, obviously. On your Windows, you cannot run iOS. That's a small thing, but you guys get the idea. If I actually have the simulator installed on my device right now, and what I can actually do is I can come back to this last button that is called virtual devices, and if I actually click on this last button, it will say start a virtual device, and it will recognize if I have actually a simulator or emulator available. How cool is that? We actually go and query the system and figure it out for you, because AppStudio doesn't know what you have, but we will actually figure it out for you on the fly. Not only that, we will even tell you what you have that is ready to use, okay, and the different types of emulators of simulators you might have installed. Are you guys getting it? Now, just because I did that, now you can actually run the app and simulate it or emulate it in any of these combinations without buying any literal hardware, okay? You still, remember, I'm not telling don't test on a real device. You should test on a real device with a player, but once you're done testing on a real device, and if somebody hits a problem or if somebody only problem appears on one or two devices, this is a great way to test it out. This is also a good way to test it out if you want to see how it's looking on an iPad, because you don't have an iPad with you right now. I mean, how do you do that? It's a great tool. So I can actually do that. I'll show you one other cool thing here. I'll just say I want to test it on an iPhone 5. See what happens over here. It's going to start the emulator. Can you guys see it now? Maybe I'll just make it a little smaller. It's going to start the emulator, and not only start the emulator, it will go and install the player on it. It will take all the apps that you've gone and sync on it and make it fully ready for you to use. You don't have to do anything. You just have to click on that button. Now iPhone 5 with 10.0, 14.834, whatever that version of operating system is running, and I can actually go here and open the app and just run it as if it was just right there on my device, and I can feel happy that it still works, okay? This is one way to test it, and if I make any changes to this, you can come back over here and actually just sync it, and it will just run it again. In fact, I want to see how does this actually work on my Android device. So let me actually come here. By the way, just as an FYI, Android emulators are really slow. Just be careful. You have to be very patient with them. But since it's saving me money by not buying devices, I will be patient. Okay. So I'm going to actually execute the same app on an Android device right here. It's starting up. I have a very powerful Mac, and it still takes a long time. You guys get the idea? It is slow. So while it's still starting up, it's better to have it started before you write the app so that you can just run it. Okay, this is running Nexus 5 API. I didn't even see what was the API, but again the same thing happens. It goes and downloads the player, the latest player, and then installs it and gets it ready for you to use. I can say, oh great, now I want to check this thing on an iPad or an Android device, and you guys get the area. Now this is true cross-platform development. Did you see? I didn't change any code. It was looking the same, the way it should look on both the devices, isn't it? Right. Okay, so what else can we do? I mean, we're almost running out of time. I need a couple more hours to finish it, but I don't want to keep you here. So let's get back to the slide deck and see what else I had. I had something to cover. Okay, we wanted to write an app. I think we already did it in the previous session, so I'm not going to do that. I already talked about player. You can build all these things for the player, which is great. We already, in the last session, we already talked about QML. So if anybody is new and wondering, okay, this is all great, now I need to build my app, what should I use? Should I use .NET? Should I use Java? Should I use Swift? What should I use? The answer to that is you're going to use something called as QML and JavaScript. Basically, what is QML? QML is a meta language, just like HTML, but it is a specialized meta language. It is not made for web applications like what HTML is. This is made for writing native applications. So when you're actually using QML, it feels like you're using JSON. It feels like you're using JavaScript. It feels like you're using CSS. It just feels like you're using all the things, all the scripting kind of things that you already know. But it also, behind the scenes, is fully based on C++. Okay? So it is powered or backed by a C++ engine, and because of that you get good performance and good good mileage out of these things. So QML is pretty cool. Once you start writing it, you're going to appreciate it a lot. It is fast. It is fast in every way, in execution, in learning, and also in writing. Okay, that's what we mean by fast, because it's productivity, right? You don't want something to be extremely verbose like Android to actually slow you down. And by the way, if you guys don't know, how many of you know what is property binding? Where do you see property binding? In XAML, right? And where else? How many of you wish JavaScript had property binding? If you guys didn't know about it, JavaScript doesn't have property binding. That's a different issue. But anyway, property binding is extremely useful. Okay, it avoids you writing hundreds of lines of code. Okay, and QML is completely based on that. And because of that, you feel like you're doing reactive programming. You can clearly design very loosely coupled components and loosely coupled business logic, and it all works together because a free property binding engine has been given to you. It is literally amazing. You will find it very addictive once you get used to it. And then it's got signals, it promotes all this componentization. Oh, by the way, it has got a very excellent animation which is very good on performance. Okay, it guarantees you certain levels of performance. And all the business logic or all the values that you provide, everything is in pure JavaScript. Okay, it's ECMAScript 5 compatible JavaScript. Okay, what does that mean? You don't have a browser, you don't have a DOM, but you can write pure JavaScript for your apps. And hence getting started with it and writing apps with it is very, very cool. So behind the scenes, what is happening is you are using QML and you are using JavaScript to actually get to the C++ components. So you are not writing C++. You are utilizing the power of C++ exposed to you in a simple thing such as a QML or a JavaScript. and you're using these two to compose your app, build your app, make your app look beautiful, work great, and actually do some interesting things. But at the end of the day, everything gets executed in C++ behind the scenes. All right? And because of this, we are able to achieve cross-platformness. All right? Hence, we didn't care whether it was a Mac or an iOS or an Android or whatever architecture, because C++ behind the scenes itself is cross-platform if you write it correctly. Okay, here is a simple glimpse. This is for people who are coming from .NET. If you're coming from .NET, you will write your code in XAML, right? XAML gives some nice things in it. You will back it up with some C#. If you come from JavaScript world or a web application world, you will write some HTML and you will write some CSS and you will write some JavaScript. Similarly, when you come from an AppStudio world, you will write some QML, which covers the presentation and the styling and the business objects, and you will use JavaScript to either change the behavior, change the functionality, add some more value to your app. And you can keep mixing and matching these things. Okay? You can go from a JavaScript to a QML, you can go from a QML to JavaScript. It will just become a unified language at that point. And not only that, since when you use your HTML libraries, you include a lot of libraries, right? Including our JavaScript API library. Very similarly, when you use .NET, you include a lot of libraries in .NET, including the .NET framework, some other libraries, including maybe a .NET runtime library. Very similarly, when you write an AppStudio app, you will be including the frameworks that we give you, like Quick Framework and App Framework, but you will also be including a runtime framework if you want to write runtime based apps. Okay? The execution platform for a web app is a browser. The execution platform for a .NET based app is Visual Studio or a binary that is created using Visual Studio. In AppStudio, we actually support both models. We give you a browser-like experience when you use Player, because we will just consume your code and just run it. But we will also give you a more traditional model of creating binaries, because you need to go to the store or install it in a single execution through our Cloud Make or Local Make. Is this clear? Yes? All right. I don't have time for demos, more demos. I'll just give you a basic rundown of the stack. These are the kinds of apps that you will write on the top. It doesn't matter whatever app you write. You will have access to the Quick Framework and you will have access to the AppStudio framework. And if you want to write mapping based applications which has visualization and you want to take advantage of the local data, this and that, then you will also include the runtime API. Okay? And because of that, you have access to all these ArcGIS things behind the scenes. So just like any other language, you import any of these libraries, then based on what you have imported, you will get those functionalities. What functionalities will you get? Something similar to this. If you use Quick Framework, you will get a bunch of functionality. If you use runtime API, you will get a bunch of functionality. And on top of it, if anything is missing in any of those libraries, and if we feel anything should be more productive or we can make you more productive, we actually add all those things in our app framework library. Okay? And hence you can actually be a lot more productive than if you just go a typical API route. It's a very common question I get. Why should I use AppStudio? Why should I not use an API? Right? That's a good question to ask. So my question is, if you want to buy a house, will you go to Home Depot or will you go to a builder? That's the choice you need to make. Okay? Are you guys getting what I'm trying to say? If you are a builder, you will go to Home Depot, get all the raw materials and build it yourself, because that is your trade and that is what you specialize in. If you're not a builder, would you want to do that? Do it yourself APIs are not for everyone. If you're good at it, please use it. If you're not good at it, or if you're not aware of it, or you don't want to spend more time on it, or you want to get things done faster, you can actually use a little bit higher level tooling and productivity like what we are providing in AppStudio. Okay? that doesn't matter, that doesn't mean you're not a programmer. We are just making your life easier, faster. And we think both programmers and non-programmers would like it. Who doesn't like to do things faster and better and easier, isn't it? So instead of going alone and downloading an API and figuring it out, join us. We are all doing apps. We will be doing many more apps than you guys will ever build, and because of that we will be making this platform better and better and better. So all you will find is more and more useful things and more productive things, so that you will end up writing much more apps in a cheaper, faster, better way as the time goes. Okay? All right, we already talked about all these things. We are about to go over time. So distributing apps, I told you can distribute apps in two ways. You can generate binaries or run in the player. If you generate binaries, you can go to the enterprises or to the App Store. These are the different binaries you can build. Okay, and before you go to the App Store, some of the things that we cannot help you with is your icons. You have to give us the icons. We cannot generate it. We cannot come up with a new icon for you. Once you give us icon, we'll do the rest. Launch images too. If you give us something, we will do the rest. Otherwise, we'll use some default. Signing certificates, unfortunately, we cannot sign every certificate on your behalf. That's the only thing you will have to give us, only if you have to go to the app stores with it. Okay. If you want to use runtime, runtime basic is free, and to unlock that free, you just need to give us a free client ID. It's very simple to do, and then you need to name your app yourself. Okay, the rest of the things we can help you with. Okay, thank you for attending. If you want to stay back and see some more demos, please feel free. Otherwise, we are actually done with this session for now. I'm going to show a few demos if you guys want to stay back, if you have more time. Otherwise, thank you for attending. Please make a note of that link, that bit.ly link over there. It has got some amazing resources that will be extremely useful for you, both to understand AppStudio and also to get a taste of what AppStudio does behind the scenes. All right, thank you. So I'll give 30 seconds for people to exit, and then we'll start the second show. Yes. Sorry? Visual Studio has an Android emulator. We have not yet tested on it, so we will definitely look into it. We support the Intel x86 emulators because they are much faster too. Okay, I believe that is also based on that, but if there is something, we'll actually make a note of it. So you're interested in a Visual Studio Hyper-V based Android emulator, right? There is one. We will actually take a look at it. Thank you for letting us know. Yeah. Yeah, 1.4 is out as of last Friday. It has got a lot of enhancements. And to answer your other question, we are using the more stable version of runtime, which is 10.2.x version. We will be going to the next version of runtime, which is also called as Quartz or 100 in the July time frame. The product management wants to call it beta, but we are pretty confident we'll go final with it. Okay. So in that particular release, you will have an opportunity to do all the cool stuff that you have been seeing on the stage, but in a cross-platform way that we are talking about.
Thanks a lot, man.
All right. Yes.
Support for third-party frameworks on mobile devices?
Support for third-party frameworks on mobile devices. So we'll be writing a blog post on that. So what you can actually do is you cannot put your third-party libraries on your CloudMake infrastructure, because we cannot guarantee what's going to happen, or we don't even know that, right? So if you want to use third party, say for example, if you want to include a notification library or some other library in your app, how would you do that? So one way to do that is you would actually use, first write your app the way you would write the app, then do a local make. And when you're doing a local make, we give you two options. One is go ahead and create the binary itself, or just generate the project files for me. I don't want the binary itself. Once you do that, we behind the scenes generate the Xcode and the Android and all the projects for you. Okay, and if you double click one of those things, and then there's a process to that, and then the Android studios will open and you can start injecting your own libraries into it and extend it. So we have done that for some of the plugins like a Touch ID or something like that.
Right now we're developing an app that requires PDF support.
PDF support.
Yeah, which is not native on either Android or iOS.
On Android, on iOS it is native if you use a web view.
Not for what we're doing.
Okay, if you have advanced requirement, yes.
Yeah, no, it's not just displaying it. It's actually interacting with it, making annotations, creating overlays, and it's
okay.
a little bit more complex than that.
So what is that library written in?
We're using PSPDF kit.
PSPDF kit.
Yes.
Okay. But what is it about? Do they give an Android and iOS like?
Yeah, they have their product for iOS, Android, Windows Phone, and web. So
Okay. Is that a JavaScript library or is it it's a native library?
yeah, it's native. They maintain code base for each platform they support.
Actually, we are also looking to support PDF natively because we have for Survey 123, our other app, we actually need that as a requirement. So if you can talk to Shobna, who is sitting right there, and we can actually take some notes and try to figure out if we can integrate this into our platform itself.
Yeah, but again, that was kind of my main thing. So basically, make a local, and you can generate the project files.
And then from then onwards, you are taking the responsibility of building that app.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that kind of comes to the other thing, that if I want to make updates to something, I would either have to make the updates prior to or on the other side.
No, you will always be doing updates to your app. You will only be updating or doing the local make once you're ready, because the only thing that will not be there is your PDF thing. Everything else will be there. Right. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit involved, complex, but yeah, that's something that if you want to build your own custom apps, that is something that you would want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
Okay, there are only 3 of us over here. Are we going to close this session? No? 5 more minutes? Okay, sure. All right, since you guys are here, and I'm going to actually show you a few demos that you might not have seen of. So here is, let me actually open my phone and project my phone over here. So this is my phone. Okay, let me actually show you an app that we have actually created. Somebody wanted us to show how we can take advantage of all the sensors in the device. Can you guys see this? So this is sort of a heads-up display kind of device. It is taking advantage of most of the sensors on your device, like the tilt and compass, accelerometer, gyrometer, the latitude, longitude, altitude, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so this will be available as a sample. This will be a good example for you guys. It's also showing you the camera, the front and back and all these things. A good sort of an example as to how you could potentially use sensors in your own app. Okay, we also recently added something called as text to speech. Do you guys know what is text to speech? Let me see if you guys can hear it. Okay, I'm going to say something to her. Okay, I mean, you're not able to, to listen the. Let me see if I can actually run Elise. So what this application is doing is it's actually using text to speech. So I can actually interact with this app, and whenever she says something, she actually speaks it out to you. So you can use this in various situations when you're doing navigation type of apps, or whenever you're using apps where the app is not actually in focus but it's in the background, or when you have it in the pocket, you can vibrate it and you can use voice. You can also use it for disability kind of accessibility kind of use cases where you want to read it out, or you can even use it for use cases where you have multiple languages in your app, and the person who holds the phone might not know what it is, so he or she wants to convey it through sound, because somebody might not understand the language. There are many use cases for this. So let me actually see.
Hello, my name is Eliza. Is something troubling you?
So basically that is how it's going to look like. So what else? I actually wanted to show you, quickly some other apps that you can do. So here is an app that is written purely using QML, but it doesn't use the runtime 3D. It uses QML, also provides 3D. So this is a solar system kind of app. So this is an animation on a 3D with different images and different 3D models, and here is a good example that actually gives you the power of the platform. This application is cross-platform and it works exactly the same way on any device I put. Okay, that is because it's purely rendered using C++. The third one is, I want to show you, this is also based on the same 3D model. I want to show you the rendering aspect of it, and it is also interesting to note that you can actually see the actual objects itself that's being rendered. So it's not images in this case, it is actually a model that's being rendered. Okay, it's not something that you would do every day, but in case you are interested, that's also possible. Here is a different app that's actually written by one of the cute contributors itself. This is a car dashboard kind of application. So this is a very custom app that you would not run on your phone, but mostly like an embedded device or something like that. So here's a good example of what you can do. You can do some things like this. You can actually click on them and get some information. You can sort them, and then once you're done, you can actually come back. So these are the kinds of different types of UI that you can actually write. Okay. So here is a custom application that was written. This is using ArcGIS. It's like we're not connected to the network. But this has a nice charting and elevation. Let me show you a different charting example. You can also write non-GIS apps using AppStudio. So AppStudio is a full-fledged app development platform. We are not limited to just GIS based of apps. So here is a kind of app that you could also write using the same set of languages. Use Player, use Cloud Build, use all the things that you already know about. Okay, so you can actually write a game, or you can write any other your backend office application using the same framework that you would also write using GIS for your GIS apps. Okay, so we are not making any distinction between one app or the other app. You can still unlock and use AppStudio for anything like this. Okay. You can also use the same exact app to write the most complicated GIS applications too. Here is one example. Let me actually go offline. This whole data set is completely offline, and it is actually showing you an electric utility network. If you guys know what I'm talking about, you know how complexity of the data out here. It's megabytes and megabytes worth of data. It's geodatabases, extremely complex, rendering. We are just taking advantage of the runtime, electric circuits, electric networks, a lot of labeling, lot of junctions, rules, domain, subtypes, all that stuff, right? You can see that there are almost 30 layers here which are offline. And we even provide you a sample that shows how to do a sort of an autocomplete on a feature. And once you actually get to the feature itself, you can get the attribute of that feature. Attribute doesn't look nice, but you get the idea, right? Everything is done offline. How? Because we are taking advantage of runtime in this case. We can even take advantage of, say, something simple as showing an entire TPK completely offline, right? If you don't want a TPK, if you want to use real data, you can actually use a geodatabase. And if you see this geodatabase is scale dependent, so as I zoom in, it's going to do more. And then not only that, I can turn the layers on or labels on and off. These are very classic GIS based applications too. And there are actually many demos like this that I can actually keep you here all day. But before I end this, I want to show you one other application that we are currently working on. I want to actually show you something that was shown in the plenary. If you guys have attended the plenary, you must have seen this application over there. This is an augmented reality application. This is also completely written using AppStudio. So behind the scenes, what we are doing is we are actually coming up with a complete augmented reality library, or a sort of a plugin kind of solution, where it will help you write similar apps, and not only that, it will actually directly interact with your ArcGIS services and features in the future. So that will actually make a very interesting set of applications that you could do for augmented reality kind of applications, which has actually got a huge application space in the GIS industry. Okay, thanks for attending. Hopefully you got a good good taste for certain types of things that you could do with AppStudio. I encourage you guys to download it, try it out, and let us know. All right, thank you.
I have a couple of questions.
Uh-huh.
Everything translates to native, that's right?
Mhm.
Everything translates down to C++, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
So, what about UI design, all those stuff? Do you do everything in QMLs? Or?
Yes, you do everything in QML. They already give something, but you can also do more.
Is that something that drag and drop functions going on?
Not drag and drop. You just like include a button or an image or a list view or whatever it is. It will get instantiated.